All right. Well, welcome back to the Financial Beast podcast. This is where we show practice owners how to harness the power of their practice, build wealth, and go out at the top of their game. I am Eric Miller, your best financial friend forever. And we have a topic for you today. And I got one of my very, very old friends here with me. And this is gonna be fun today. It's gonna be super fun because we're actually gonna be talking about exiting. And I know this was probably a little bit more popular a couple years ago, when it was like the gold rush of practices exiting. But I have someone here that actually has the unique perspective that he's been through an exit, and he'll probably go through another one at some point in time. But usually that doesn't happen.
Yes, it's not no works at the moment.
Exactly.
It's going to be a while. I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
So this is going to be fun because we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of exiting, and really what to watch out for, and methods of how to exit, and all this fun stuff. So I have Johnny Johnson here. I don't even know the name of the new physical therapy company that you have right now.
Epic Physical Therapy.
Epic Physical Therapy.
Correct. And
so yeah, you've had that now for
3 years. We started June of COVID, which was a pretty interesting time to do it. We had everything was in plan, and then in March, the world pretty much shut down, but we still pushed through it and went with it, and we've been able to achieve a lot. Within 3 years, we've actually already topped our production that we had at my previous company.
That's crazy.
I'd like to take all the credit, but I can't. I really can't, because I have a partner and I have a great staff, and the physical therapy is a business of people.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to put together a team of people who all working together, and to grow and expand, and then just give a good product.
Yep.
And
you do it well.
Yeah, we've been fortunate. And I appreciate you having me, because I knew Eric Miller before he was the Eric Miller. So
wow. Well,
best-selling author, and your book is really great.
How do you feel?
I told you earlier. So I read his book right when it came out, and I thought it was really, really good. And before I came down here, I read it again, and I was like, man, it just makes more and more sense. And him and I have similar beliefs. And as I read it, I had more reality of that. We were on the same page.
No doubt.
Where you got to build different streams of income in today's world.
Yeah, for sure.
Your business is at risk, as every business is. So the more income you could produce from different spots, the better you'll be long term.
Yeah, I think you're probably a testament to some of the things that we preach about, really running your household like a business, and treating the practice like an investment and not just a job. So I think there's just too many PTs out there, in the industry, healthcare owners just in general, that were born practitioners, or that's really where their heart is. It's just like you said, it's a people business. I want to get people better, but they don't really understand the business investment side that well. And that's where I think you're really, for whatever reason, I don't know where you got that from, but you kind of embraced that really early on, that you're just not a practitioner. You're also an owner and an investor, and
I think as you become an entrepreneur, you look at doing different things, and have real estate and private equity and different, just different businesses, because there's always risks. Like I said, my previous business, I opened in 99, and then we grew to 3 clinics. And in 2005, Katrina hit.
Mm-hmm.
So when Katrina hit, we were down for months, several months. So go have 30 employees and be shut down for 2 or 3 months. It's a risk. There's no money coming in. Trust me, it's an outflow of capital. So you have to be able to plan for those kind of events. So if PT or
facts right there, facts.
Right. So if you only have one revenue stream,
mm-hmm.
You could have problems at some point.
Yeah.
So you got to look in the future. What's your goal? You have to build a platform that could have different revenue streams into retirement. And I don't think it's all about retirement. It's just when you have different revenue streams, you could do different projects and have fun and kind of set your family up.
You got freedom at that point in time.
Financial freedom is the key. I think no one wants to work forever, or what if you do want to go take a 2-week vacation, or what if you become sick and you can't go to work for a month, or your family member becomes sick.
Yeah.
I have 2 kids in college right now. That's a that's a costly endeavor. I promise you that.
Nowadays it is, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It doesn't get any easier, does it?
No.
Let's rewind back to what was it, 2016?
17.
2017. Okay. So, I talk a lot about methods to exit. And for PT owners or healthcare owners in general, I think I've kind of narrowed it down to like your three basic options that you have. You could have sold to like a competitor, some other person that was of similar size in your industry, sell to an associate, associate PT, or sell to a private equity group or corporate group. You picked the corporate route. Why?
Well, at that time, we had so I'd come to Clearwater and I'd do some work with a consultant. And there were some guys I knew out here that were looking to put together a private equity fund that was in physical therapy. I turned them down a couple of times.
Hmm.
And then, finally I saw the kind of team they put together and I said, look, this is a doable option for me because the strategy was, you sell, actually at that time it was 70 or 80%, and then you retain some ownership in the parent company. So there's some future growth there. There was also, some things on like health insurance for the company, some growth opportunities for employees. So there's some things that really looked interesting to me, and I really, really liked the group that we got involved with.
Yeah.
So that's where we started. So after probably turning them down 3 or 4 times in over a year, um, I went ahead and said, "Okay, we could do this. Let's go ahead and do the merger."
Yeah.
However, and maybe we'll get this more into the cons of private equity, but people don't stay forever. So
That's
the
right.
problem was there was a reverse merger with that company where all the people I knew left. So then I'm dealing with a whole new group of people who, maybe not
But you don't know.
who I don't know. So you lose control. So
Yeah.
losing control of what you know and what you do is a hard thing. I
Yeah.
say that's one of the negatives of private equity.
So when you talk about the pros of it, because obviously I think the biggest pro that of private equity is that they they can they can probably afford to pay a little bit more than somebody else would be able to.
Correct. So I think the pro would be on private equity, they could pay more. You're going to retain ownership, say 20 or 30% in a bigger entity,
Hmm.
which has some upside to it. Um, said I met with a guy who did one of the biggest private equity deals in the field of physical therapy, and he did amazingly well. You've had some other clients that have done very, very well with it.
Yeah.
So there are those kind of pros. Um, Now, there's a downside on some of it as well. And I think one main downside, as a business owner, you are an entrepreneur as well. And then you lose some of that entrepreneurial spirit when you're not in charge. And that's a hard thing to do.
Staying on with the pros, did you feel like the employees would be better off at that point in time? Were their benefits better than what maybe you could have provided as, a single owner, who's has limited resources? I mean, you had a
Right.
profitable practice and
Right.
such, but these groups have, massive resources.
All right.
So was that at all
That
something
actually
that
that was part of my thought process of going in, and they do. I mean, you could get, maybe your health insurance will be cheaper. They're a bigger group, so they get some better deals
yeah.
on benefits. I say yes on that side of it.
And then the other benefit to you would have been, and I know your deal structure was a little different though, was that, you leave some equity in to the organization and that may turn out to be, another bite of the apple, so to speak.
Exactly, and I even know some other people in some different industries who have sold to private equity, and what they what their take was from the initial sale, their 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 minority stake actually ended up being more than initial
Yeah.
sale. So for some people, that definitely works out
I try
in
to
a big
tell
way.
I try to tell most owners though that I would not have that expectation, because I I don't know. I just haven't seen it. I
Yeah.
literally have not seen, most of these, organizations that have come up have acquired some practices, but I haven't seen the second bite of the apple where they recapitalized and all of a sudden, your $1 million of equity that you left in is turning into $3 million. I just
Right.
haven't seen that come to fruition. So I caution people to not
Well,
depend
and my
upon
take
that.
on that, I think you got to make sure that the amount you get up front is enough to cover your needs. it has to set you up in a good financial position.
Yeah, important point right there. What he said right there. Make sure that the first initial bite of the apple is more than enough to take care of you, and
Absolutely.
don't depend on that second bite of the
Because
apple.
once you give up that, it's it's unfortunate to be able to do what I did, but it's a lot harder to do it the second time just because there may be a lot of restriction on you.
Yeah. Okay. So those are
So
some of the pros. Let's get
right.
into some of the cons right there, because I think I think you had mentioned, and I do agree with you that the the people that you first initially met that were part of the management group on site, or where you or that you would be dealing with,
Correct.
changed,
Correct.
right?
So that's a big thing. So then you're dealing with all new people, and then they're their own entity, so they have staffing problems themselves, or people come and go, and what was told to you by one person, and then you go back and say, "Well, y'all told me this." They like, "Well, we don't see that in the document, so that was not told to you."
Mm,
So it's everything goes by the documents, and unfortunately, these documents are hundreds and hundreds of pages long, and there's a lot of legal jargon in there
yes.
that one word just changes the meaning of the whole document. So
That's crazy. So you do, I mean, I know that these deals happen kind of fast. I don't know what your close date was after you signed your letter of intent, but usually it's like 90 days or
correct.
like,
It was about 90 days.
it's not, it sounds like a long time, but when you're dealing with like transitioning out, that's not much time.
Correct.
And you had legal representation,
Correct.
obviously,
Mhm.
but I mean, there's still things in there that you're just,
Yeah, I mean
you didn't think things were going to go bad,
right.
right?
And even having an attorney, I mean, if he had to go read all the documents again, it would take him 2 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
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 almost impossible,
it's
isn't it?
almost impossible. I mean, so you put in some trust factor in there because you cannot understand every document and every word of every document.
When did you realize it was starting to go south?
So once management changed, I realized it when during a meeting with some of the upper management, and they wanted to cut salaries,
Mm.
and I'm like, I mean, you ever see morale increase if you cut someone's salary? So I knew it wasn't the right fit for me at that time because one thing as the business owner, especially of a physical therapy practice, like I said, we are people driven business. So we have people relationship and patient relationship and community relationships and your staff because you're only good as your staff. So if you don't have a good staff, you're going to run it into the ground because if money becomes your focus, I think you will fail.
Yeah.
So money should be a byproduct of success. So if whatever you do in the world, if you're good at it, you should make money.
Mhm.
But if you only focus on that and don't have a good product, you're going to fail at the end. So one of the big things I see with private equity, there's a lot of different levels of management. So you have middle management, and they think they know more than you, and they think they have a better way, um, which is interesting because these guys are buying you because you're the best in your area. They're not going by the guy who's not profitable.
Mhm.
So they come in to buy the guy who's doing well. So then to come in and try to change that model, it just doesn't work.
It almost violates like a rule of power too, is that you don't want to change anything that's going on,
Absolutely.
where, there's a reason why you were in the condition that you were in because of
Exactly.
your management style, what your people were doing, how they were treated, and all of those things. And when you go in there and eventually like start changing all that, it's,
Right, then staff, if there's upsets in staff and they wanna leave because the more turnover is a bad thing in our business. So
yeah.
if you have a lot of turnover, you're not gonna do well long
Did that
term.
happen at first? Did you have some turnover?
Well, not really at first because it was all geared to me of me helping keeping those people.
Yeah.
But eventually it was getting I saw it not working out long term for my people because they saw what was going on.
Yeah.
They didn't feel like they were put on a pedestal.
That's for sure.
Yeah, so we Richard Branson had a quote said, "Your job as the owner to take care of your staff, and your staff's job is to take care of your clients, patients, whatever it be." And actually, I forwarded that to some of the management. I never did get a response on that. I was like,
So the
"Hmm."
communication was pretty bad with the group at some point in time, right? I mean,
Yeah, so
and you
it's a
just
different motto. Yeah, it was different goals.
yeah. And of course, I'm not going to sit here and say that I mean you had a bad experience. I guess we could call it a bad experience. I mean, it wasn't like
even
It,
myself, there's pros and cons.
yeah, I
Yes.
mean, there were some good things that happened from it.
Correct.
There were you did it when you were really pretty young. I mean, you weren't even 50 years old when you had
No, I
sold at
was
that point in time.
45.
Yeah. So I want to kind of touch on that because a lot of people sometimes have the thought of, well, am I like, should I think about selling? And what are the motivations that, or what are the things that I should be looking at when it comes to selling? And I know we talked about these two. I think there's two primary things that you have to ask yourself: is emotional readiness and the financial readiness. So I want to talk about the emotional readiness. Like what was going on at that point in time where you were
Yeah,
like even thinking about it?
it would have been fine if I could have stayed with maybe the group and we grew it and just kept on
Hmm.
expanding and everything was going well. But when it really wasn't going well for me, it just takes a part out of you because you put so much into it. I was 17, 18 years into this business and my staff relied on me, my community relied on me so I had to be there. So fortunate for me, I was able to come back and do it again.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how it really, really worked out because now we're still there for our community. Um, and I enjoy being part of that organization. To sit at home and go do something else, that'd be a tough gig. And even financially, I mean, it takes a lot to live in today's world. So
Yeah.
you have to build multiple streams of income. You can't, and we're going to talk about wealth
Oh,
equivalency
we
as well.
definitely will.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to talk though, but you weren't burnt out, were you? Were you
No,
at
no,
that point
no.
in time?
No, no, no.
Yeah.
My goal was to grow and expand and make something bigger and better for everyone.
Okay, so the
Uh,
plan of the private equity group and you, when you guys kind of sat down and talked, is like, I'm not done
no,
being like involved in this. I want to grow multiple practices. I continue want to do that, but
correct,
you guys have resources that maybe I don't have
correct.
that can help us do it faster. And I think
Exactly,
that's the promise, right? But it's
exactly.
but again and again, I mean, these groups are so big. They
Mhm,
have different management teams that probably go around the country, and unfortunately, the one that you were involved with wasn't good.
mhm.
Right? You just didn't jive.
We didn't jive,
You
right.
know, so
We
that
didn't gel.
yeah, there was no gelling at
Right,
that point. So that's where it can go bad,
correct, correct.
and that's what I
So
think you have
then
to
you
watch out
just lose
for.
control. You basically sold or become an employee, and after you've
Did you
been
feel like an employee at one point in time?
when they would more in like staff pay and stuff when they tried to get me to cut people's pay,
Yeah.
I did. I was like,
Gambler doesn't like that either.
no, no, I didn't like that. Because I knew what worked and I knew how to do it, and we already did it, and I know, my staff, who I needed and what position, who was the best,
Yeah.
and it's like no one was concerned about that,
Okay.
where I knew how we could succeed. Then once I saw that we couldn't succeed on the grand scale, it was
That
time
was
for me
it.
that was it.
Yeah.
It was time
And
for
there
me
was really no coming back from that point
mhm,
at that
no,
point. I
it was
mean,
time for me to
no
go.
matter no amount of
Mm,
talking with the group or I mean I
no,
think they have some pretty fixed ideas on how they do business. And I guess they have the right because they gave you a bunch of money up front. And I
correct.
mean I mean
They're right.
that's their right. Okay.
It's my right to go.
You're right to go. Yeah. The what were you required to stay on for a period of time?
Yeah, so I sold in 17. I stayed 3 years.
Okay. But there beyond that, it would have been impossible, right? But I think
Correct,
most people there is some requirement when you sell to a corporate that you got to stay on for a period of time. I
correct.
think there's some 3 year requirement, 2 to 3 year
Every
requirement.
state had their own laws and rules and regulations on employment agreements, and
Yeah.
so it's just state by state.
Okay. All right. How about financial readiness? So we talked a little bit about what you were thinking at that point in time. So you weren't burnout, and again, I'd never make a decision to exit your practice when you are burnt out. And one of the things that we talk a lot because we see it in our industry too. I'm sure you hear it from other PTs as well. I'm just burnt out.
Right.
I'm just burnt out. Where do you think that comes from? I have an idea, but I want to hear what you think that comes from.
I think it's big part of it not being able to put a group of people together, having a good staff because you're wearing too many hats. So you're taking on all the responsibilities with all the headaches and
Yeah.
that causes stress and just get overworked and overburdened. So I'll tell you, do not sell when you're burnt out
Yeah.
because if you are, then you just become an employee of a bigger entity, but you're still having to manage the people with you. Because when you do sell, you sell and you keep in probably 20 or 30% equity, and you're
Hmm.
going to have some kind of earn out. So you're going to be there for a while.
Yep.
So you're going to be in those, have those same problems, and you're not getting all the revenue from that. You're just
Yeah.
on a salary. So it kind of magnifies the problem. I would say if you're thinking about burning out, you need to get some training. You need to have a consultant. There is a blueprint out there of how to do this.
Yeah.
You know, I was the guy. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I always wanted to do more. I was the person who listened to infomercials and would buy a real estate program online or off TV. I used to love listening to Zig Ziglar, motivational speaker.
Yeah.
But the thing about all those things, they're really good, and I think you gotta be motivated, but it'd be like, "I wanna rule the world. I got this. Come on, what am I do?" And at the end of the day, you're like, "I don't really know how to do it?" But there's blueprints out there. If you learn how to run a business, how to put different aspects, marketing and production and finance all into play, it makes it pretty easy.
Yeah, there's other successful PT owners that understand the business side of it, and I know you work with a consulting group that specialize in working with healthcare owners,
Correct.
and that's you learned and you applied and it worked, and
And
simple as
absolutely, and
that.
it has to be a team of people. So I think the guy who's burned out don't have the right team with him.
Yeah,
So he don't have people he could ask questions, or he doesn't have a financial consultant. He doesn't have a marketing consultant. He don't, you know. I feel every one on my team gets me where I am, and helps us grow, from my yard man
yeah.
to our AC guy to our marketing company, everyone, because you got to take as much as you can off your plate so you could grow and expand.
So you never
That's a
had
key.
you never had a problem letting go of certain things.
On what now?
I don't know, just like
Oh, you mean like on?
like letting go of
No.
like certain functions, that because when you first started the business, it was all you, and then as you grew, you brought people on. But even then, I tend to see business owners kind of hold on to certain things that well, that they shouldn't be doing, even
Right.
though they hired someone to do it. But did you ever had a problem with
Well,
letting
maybe
go?
at first, but
Yeah,
that was some of the things I learned in
yeah,
consulting, is that you gotta get people online to have them take those hats away.
yeah.
So now I always try to have other people doing all those things so you could look into the future. Because if you always bog down in patient care, you'll never get ahead. You got
Nope.
to be looking to the future. And by doing that, you can also do other business ventures and
It gives you more time to think and create.
absolutely. So, and that's kind of, if you go back to your book, when you're talking about building a household's income or a household business, it gives you time to work on that, where your practice is one slice of the apple in there,
Yeah.
but you have other revenue streams, other businesses, and other investment ideas.
Albeit it's an important one, but it shouldn't be the goal that it's going to be the only one that I have
Correct.
for the rest of my life. So when you were looking at your decision, you did look at the finances of it, and
Correct.
the deal that you got on the private equity sale, um, that you felt was enough. Maybe not enough, but I mean, it was going to put you in a position where you were pretty financially stable at that point in time.
Correct. Because
Yeah.
I owned the real estate on the clinics,
Yeah.
and I had some other, ventures going. But yes, where, with my salary and my other income,
Yeah.
I felt that I would have been fine. And then looking at what would be the next step if we grew this whole entity, which I think could have happened.
Yeah. But the sale proceeds, I mean, you're never going to make as much money off the sale proceeds as you will in owning the practice
Absolutely not,
in most
because
cases.
let's just go through, time value of money.
Yeah.
So, right, let's just say interest rates. Like at that time, I mean, a CD or treasuries were yielding not even 1%. Right now it's 5%. Um, real estate, what you'd expect to make in real estate, 8 to 12%.
Yeah. I would say, depending on
Um,
the kind of real estate that it is, some people are like 12 to 15, but I
right.
think, that's a good range.
Stock market average eight to
Stock gambler
eight
loves the
to
stock
10.
market, doesn't he?
But it's not true income. I mean,
Right.
you could have your little 2% yield off your stock, but
Yeah.
so when you put all those numbers together, it's not the same as revenue from a good practice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the practice should, if it's got, and talking about that, like, what is your target profit margin for your practice?
At least 25%. 30%.
Say it again, 25 to 30%, isn't it? And,
Yeah.
and you still have all the same problems that everybody else does with reimbursements and, inflation of
Yeah, we
staff
we're not in a high
wages,
reimbursement area.
so, I mean, what is it that you do to get such good profit margins? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like we streamline, like we just produce, like everyone in our
Yeah.
company, we got some really hard workers, some great people, great leaders. I mean, we got people that just out there every week trying to produce. So it, it,
So your goal is
they
to,
self motivated.
yeah, your goal is to get that facility to its capacity, because
Correct.
as close you get to that capacity, you got your fixed expenses, and then, at some point in time, your production is going to exceed that by a wide margin, but that would be the
At a certain
goal. Yeah.
capacity. So you want, you want to produce enough where you can still give a really good product, but
Hmm.
you're profitable as well.
Yeah.
So that's the key.
I love it, because, we're running that so much right now with everything in the healthcare space and reimbursements and insurance companies cutting reimbursements. And it's like, well, I don't know if
Oh yeah,
it's,
well, inflation has hit everyone right
well, I mean,
now.
look at
Yeah,
the average, profit, the average profit, I think, of most PT practices is like 7 to 10%. So when
yeah,
I bring
you're going to
someone on,
struggle.
yeah, you're going to struggle. So,
And with that, you're gonna keep struggling because so what's the goal of being more profitable? You could have the nicest facilities,
mhm,
you have the best paid staff. So
yep,
that's people don't only when you give people, when you pay them well, treat them right, let them be their own leaders, let them be autonomous in what they do, they tend to stay.
yeah,
Because when you start turning over a lot, then you're gonna drop down to the 8, 10% profit margin.
yeah,
You're gonna have then you're gonna get burned out as the owner.
for
So
sure.
that's the guy. That's when you're going to want to sell. Then you're going to sell at the lowest possible level.
Did you ever have a problem with profits, or did you just kind of make them like an automatic expense? Like, I'm taking this amount. This is, you never really seem to have problems though, having,
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that the other day. So I started practicing in '95, um, and my whole career, I can remember one day of being slow. So it's always like we always pushed
right.
to produce, and the key is you got to be good at marketing. You really do.
Yeah.
You could be the best clinician possible, but if people don't know you good, you're not going to really succeed in a big way. But if you could deliver a good product and actually know how to market and promote that to others, then you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
That people really downplay marketing and promotion, and that's something they don't spend enough on or they cut out. There's guys out there that have been practicing 30 years, just not very busy, and they may be a really good clinician. They just never marketed their service. So that's like at the top of the list if you're gonna be good, and that's kind of in any industry.
Yeah, that's for sure. Um, yeah, it definitely is something that, we try to get a lot of owners to see, is that the just because you're really good at what you do doesn't mean that that's going to equate to financial success. There's a difference between being a owner of a practice and then having financial success as a
Correct.
practice owner.
Correct.
So, and there's just some things that you have to know to be able to do that.
Because like there, and I really feel that the field of physical therapy is really growing. So my first company, we got to X amount in 17 years, and we restarted in 20 with our new company, Epic Physical Therapy, and we're pretty much matching that in 3 years.
That's crazy.
It just seemed like there is so much demand right now for our product,
Yeah.
especially if you could give the service at a high level, because not everyone does that.
No. And I agree with you. I think it's a great industry to be in. I think people are still going to need physical therapy. You just have to understand the business side of it to some degree.
Correct.
And
And,
that's,
and the major difference between the good and the average, it's all the little things. Like if we walked out down the street, and we went and found two clinics, and one was humming and one was just kind of slow.
hmm,
It wouldn't be anything glaring. You'd see like, man, I know why this guy's killing and this guy's not. It would be a lot of little bitty things from the front desk to the therapist to the billing to the marketing to the whole enterprise. And you'd be like, oh, that's gonna work. That's gonna work.
yeah,
So it's all these little things you put in place that make tremendous
they
differences.
make the hugest difference, don't they? All right.
Yeah.
So we talked about the financial readiness, and I think I want to keep going in on that, because you've never had the idea. I talk with about this a lot, and I think there's the traditional financial model out there is if you just save enough in your 401ks and your IRAs, and if um, have enough in retirement accounts that replaces about 70 to 80% of your income, which is that's not me talking. That comes right out
I know
of
that's not you
of,
talking.
of this of the CFP
Right.
retirement planning book, right? And that usually equates to about, let's say, one and a half to $3 million of retirement money. And I tell people all the time, which sounds like a lot of money. I mean, or maybe it did right now. It probably doesn't seem like that much, especially to the gambler right now. Uh, but when you think about that number, I always say that's just not enough.
Well,
When you figure taxes and inflation, you know, $3 million at a 5% rate of return is 150 grand a year.
so yeah, I totally agree. And let's back up a little bit because we want to talk about wealth equivalency.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the sale too.
Yeah.
So when you sell,
Oh yes.
a couple things happen. Let's just use a million for example. So if you sell for a million, you're not getting a million right up front, right?
Right.
Sell for a million, you get 70 to 80% of that. So let's say you got 700,000. Then you got to pay, most of it's going to be long-term capital gains, which is 20%. Then
Mhm.
depending on which state you're in, there's state taxes. So then at the end of the day, everything's getting dwindled down. Then we're getting toward the wealth equivalency. And you told me this point 14 years ago,
14 years ago. I remember
and
that.
I still follow it. So so for someone wants to retire, they
Yeah.
have to figure out their number. So whatever your number is, it's an easy fix. Take 5% of a wealth equivalent
Yeah.
of wealth equivalency. So let's just say I need 200,000. So how much money do I need?
Uh, let's see.
4 million.
Yeah, $4 million. Yeah.
Right. So if your goal is 200,000 a year, you need 4 million.
Now, when I say 4 million, you don't need 4 million sitting in a retirement account, right? You need 4 million in assets
Produce income.
that produce income
Correct.
equivalent of that you're earning like a 5%. So like all your investments that you have, I mean, you have some investments that are just, I mean, are killing it, right? And then I mean, it's not like everything is like earning the inflation rate. So, I think that's also something a lot of people kind of like, because when you look at every dollar that you have, you think, oh, this dollar needs to outpace inflation. It's like, mm, not really. It's the asset that you own. What kind is it? Because you need to hold some cash, right? And I know we talked about that. I mean,
Yeah. So I think right now there's an inverse relationship with so interest rates in the last 2 years have really come up, right?
yeah,
So
for
it
the
was
first time forever.
right.
Yeah,
So for a while there, everyone was trying to chase yield because there was nothing out there, right?
yeah,
So you had to get a little more risk. If someone wanted to get 8, 9%, they were chasing yield, so they would put their money more at risk. Now, 5% I think is a good number. So
I think I do too.
just
Yeah,
because it's a safe number, just say you have some, better than that, maybe some less, but that's kind of your almost like you can almost guarantee at 5% right now, more of your
yeah,
principal protected. So if you want a half million a year, you gotta have $10 million.
$10 million.
So if you want a million, you gotta have 20 million. So
Yeah,
so it's cut and dry. So here's your number you need.
and we say that because look, I mean, I pick that number because I would rather live on just the interest
Correct.
without having to really touch down on the principle of things. I think that adds to like the factor of safety and because we're going to have market downturns and we'll have recessions and depressions and
Correct.
real estate will go up, real estate will go down. So I'd rather have that idea, like, and I think just what you said, we want to start with what is your income number? How much do you need in income? That's the first question
Right.
that we would ask. And if you say, well, I want a million. Okay, great. So then guess what? A million at a 5%, rate of return is going to be 20
20.
million bucks. All
Correct.
right. So now, oh gosh. All right. So then you're starting to look now, okay, where am I going to create this $20 million from? I got this practice that, if I get it really humming and purring, it could be worth half of that,
Right.
if you have a fairly good practice. And then just getting the habit of taking profits along the way. And instead of buying cars and,
Correct.
home,
So that would
second
be
homes and
so
all
if
these things.
and if you are thinking about selling, that's one thing you really got to think about. So if I
Mm,
sell my practice, what I'm gonna do with this money?
yeah.
Now, if your goal to go buy a beach house, don't sell because assets put money on the table. So when you take that money, you need to put in some kind of other asset that's going to produce income
Yeah.
because a beach house could be a
You
liability.
didn't celebrate at all? You
Oh
didn't
yeah, yeah. No, so I agree. You need
you
a salary.
buy something nice? Come on.
I did buy a boat,
Yeah.
right?
See, but that was for enjoyment,
Correct.
and,
Correct. No,
you
you have to live.
yeah,
We're not saying not to live,
you could probably do
but
that.
you want a financial freedom would be your assets could fund your lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where, you just have to operate on the right number, and if you want, and I'll go by with that calculation. I still think is
I think
good,
5% is a good number because
Yeah.
then you principal is protected. Because
Yes.
like you said, you don't want to start eating into your principal. I mean,
No.
then what's your legacy going to be? I mean, how about building a legacy, whether it be for your kids or for
Charity?
charity or
Yeah.
for whatever, donating to your university or whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
build your legacy. So do not eat into your principal.
Yeah, you're not one of these guys that I know just, hey, I'm just gonna hand my kids just, $20 million and there you go, without teaching them along the way,
Exactly.
the where that came from. I mean, dad had to work really, hard to be able to do this. Um I think that's all part two
Yeah, and
of
I think it's
it's
fine to, to help. You could help your family. You could
yeah,
jumpstart them. You could, like you say, you never know what's going to happen in the world,
yeah,
but it's better to have a solid foundation to
I
start
agree.
with.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah,
I think so. If you are looking to sell, I think there's a couple things, terms. And so EBITDA would be one of the big ones, and that's
yeah.
in a nutshell, it's kind of your earnings. So that's what your value of your business is going to be based on, and then they base on a multiple. Um, so the higher your earnings, the higher the multiple.
And there was really not much else they looked at. I mean, I'm sure they looked at the demographics of your business. They looked at I mean, because you're in a good area. I mean, it's a highly populated area. Um, your EBITDA was good. You had staff. I mean, there. But primarily speaking, the value of your business was based upon your earnings or your profit margin.
Correct.
So you can't ignore that part.
No,
You
and
know.
then so if you are looking to sell, I would say, but take time and really know what you're dealing with, know what your expenses are,
Yeah.
because you got the due diligence is a big thing. That was took several at least a month of due diligence with a CPA. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
They don't just hand you a check.
So having things in order prior to
Absolutely,
the sale is imperative as well.
absolutely,
Because if you have I'll say this, let's say that because they're going to review all your contracts with all your insurance carriers. And if you
correct,
would have had a bunch of compliance issues or if you
correct,
would have had, legal issues, they'd have walked away from that.
absolutely,
So you really have to make sure like all of your financials are in order, all of your like I'm trying to think what else you would, all your corporate records. I'm sure they ask for that, licenses, credentialing, all that stuff.
correct.
Plus you would that's just good business anyway,
Yeah,
you
and I
know.
mean, you want to have a really good CPA, a good attorney.
Mhm.
Um, There again, those all cost as well, so you gotta figure that into your equation
Yeah.
when you checking out. What are you doing for? Are you trying to check out, or you just wanna grow and expand more with someone else?
Yeah.
Um, One of the big things too that I wasn't told at that time, and I wish I'd have known, was looking at the difference between cash and accrual accounting, because that could literally be the difference of hundreds to $1 million probably. Because
Explain that a little bit because
okay,
I'm not by the way, neither one of us for CPA, so
not
we're not giving you
CPAs.
tax advice right now.
Taught you CPA. So cash-based accounting is you don't record charges as revenue
Mhm.
until you receive the money. Okay, so most smaller businesses do it that way
Yeah,
because if not, you'll be paying tax on money you hadn't received yet.
correct.
However, the generally accepted accounting principle usually use accrual-based accounting. Accrual-based accounting gives you a little better picture of just the viability of a business long term because it shows what business they have coming in, and
Mhm.
it also shows what expense they have in the future. Now, not many small practices do accrual accounting because you are paying taxes on charges as soon as they're put into the system.
Yeah.
So that's docked as revenue when you charge. It's not when you collect the money. But most of these private equity firms and any bigger companies all going to do accrual based. So the way we do it, my CPA does the books in both ways, and then we pay taxes on the cash base.
Okay, I gotcha.
But talk to your CPA on that one because it could be a big difference.
Any other uh tax strategies that you've utilized over the years that have been beneficial?
Well, which I mean, just on distributions and how you take distributions. So
Hmm.
that's something else I'd say get with your CPA on.
Yeah. But if you have
So
real estate, we talked.
so real estate is a
Uh,
great investment, and I think it's a big plus if you could ever own your own real estate on your business
I
because
agree.
you have depreciation and mortgage expense and things like that. So, and at the end of the game, that could add another revenue stream to your income.
Yeah. You gotta I know people I can just see practitioners right now, like, looking at you like, "Where in the hell did you learn all this stuff?" It's like it didn't happen overnight, though. You
So
just took an interest in
I
this.
took an
Yeah.
interest and I do tons of I've done tons of research and I still do. And I spend time every day. I bet I put an hour or two in my household business. So
Mhm.
I run my household as a business, and I do tons of reading and research. And because look, you don't want to rely on someone else. Nothing
Yeah.
against you, Harry Miller,
No.
but you want to be knowledgeable enough when someone says, "What you think about this investment?" or "I'm gonna do this investment for you." You know the pros and cons of that as well.
Yeah, I think that's really key
Yeah,
because you don't wanna just take. I mean, look, I mean, there's good people out there, they know what they're doing, and you need to put some trust in advisors around you, but you just can't say, "Oh, you just do it for me, and I don't wanna know anything about
yeah,
it."
right.
You have to have some, like, knowingness of what's going on right now, so you can see if there's something that's out, if there's something that's, like, not consistent, or and you spotted that early on when you sold, right? Like, this is just something
Correct.
that's not right because I know
Yeah,
what
and I
to
knew
look
the
for.
future when there when I saw some out points.
Yes,
So in your book, I'm gonna reference your book again
I like that.
because
I wish I would have brought a copy of it with me, man, so we can, like, show it on here.
so in the book, you talk about strategies and tactics. So
Hmm.
I think, so you have your household income or your household business, you have to have an overall strategy of how can I, grow my household business and have multiple streams of income.
Hmm.
So that's your overall strategy. Now within that, you're gonna have different tactics, right?
Yes.
So one tactics might be a life insurance policy, one
Mhm.
tactic might be annuity, one, stock market, 401, real estate, private equity. So when you put all that together, that's your strategy. So that's why it's hard. If you have a financial guy comes in and tries to sell you a mutual fund,
Yeah.
and that's all you're doing is mutual funds, I just don't think that's a good strategy,
No, and I get it because our industry, that's how guys get paid.
right?
They get paid based upon, hey, Johnny, how much do you have for me to invest? And I'll charge you a percentage on that. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but there's got to be something prior to that that would explain where am I trying to get to, and what is the overall strategy on how to do that. And the flaw that I've seen so many times with most practice owners is that they don't use their business enough. They don't take the profits out, right?
Correct.
And then use that money to create other income sources. They either leave a bunch of cash in the business, or it gets lost in the business just because the business will try to consume it if you leave it in there.
Correct.
So they don't have a system, right, or a strategy of how am I going to get these profits out? Because if you got a $2 million practice, I mean, you should be able to take out 150, $200,000 a year of profit
Correct.
to invest in
Correct.
other assets. You do that for 10 years, you're going to be in good shape,
Exactly.
and
Yeah, it's like I said, take that from a risk. So a business is risky, correct?
yeah,
Anything can happen in a business, but you take that and take those profits and shift into something either less risky or just have different revenue streams.
yeah.
That's
It's the key. And it's not
that's
hard
the
to
key.
do.
It's not hard to
You
do.
just have to set up an automatic
But
and
you do
systematic
have
way.
to educate yourself. You do.
Yeah.
And the guy who's burnt out and wants to sell because he's burned out, he don't have time to do anything else.
No.
He is so focused. He has patient care. He has to hire someone. He has billing problems. He's having front desk leaving him. He's having so many things. Then he's burned out himself.
Yeah.
It's a bad
And
strategy.
then that usually end up badly in the next
No
couple
one would be
years.
happy to sell in that situation.
No. No.
It's just not going to work out for you.
So what's the next 5 years look like for you?
Well, we want to keep growing Epic Physical Therapy. We feel like we
Mhm.
have a great team of people. We have some leaders, we have executives, have a great partner. So we're definitely going to keep growing that. And I have some other business interests as well that I'm looking to pursue.
And when you and your partner, because I haven't really delved into much into partnerships. Obviously, I'm in a partnership, and I'm sure you've seen this before. I mean, some partnerships go bad, and they end up, pretty bad. So what was it about your partner that you guys, was there just some commonalities, some things that you guys had
Yeah,
agreements
so he
on?
worked with me for 20
Well,
years
that helps
or
then. Yeah.
18 years, so we knew each other. So then when it was time to do again, so we got a partner on this gig.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, he's a great guy. He's a great clinician, level-headed, smart,
Yeah.
checks off all the boxes. And him and I have a good relationship, so we've had any of those problems.
Yeah.
But a lot of partnerships do have problems.
Yeah. They certainly do.
But I think the difference is we each bring something different to the table. So I think for a partnership to be fair, it's got to be,
Someone,
what are you bringing? What do I bring?
right. I get
And we
that
when we
too.
bring different skill sets.
What do you think the future of PT looks like right now?
I think it's bright.
Really?
I really do. I mean, so I was talking this about with our leadership team the other day. So, you have AI out there. So I think in the future of the world, many things will be changing over the next 10 years. PT is still going to be there. There's going to be there's a need for a hands-on approach to help someone's health and wellness. And um, I don't see us getting edged out anytime soon.
AI
Like I said, I
can't.
mean, we'll always deal with some reimbursement issues, but I still think it'll be a good, viable business for the future.
If you can change one thing about it, what would you change? Or two, or
I think
three?
you ought to be paid like a per visit rate at a fair rate
Hmm.
versus a per unit rate because um, that doesn't always work well. So I would say that side of the reimbursement, that's what I would change.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Any books you're reading right now that you think are?
How to become a financial
Dang, look
beast.
at this.
I
I
had to
just kind of
reread
walked you right into that one, didn't I? That's pretty awesome.
it. Well, I do. So
Uh,
I love Warren Buffett.
Yeah,
I've read every book he's ever put out. I like what he stands for, and just I like people that are super successful. And I think some people just have a knack for whatever profession they're in, and he definitely has that. He's the greatest investor of all time.
for sure.
Um, and he's got great quotes. He's very intelligent, and I enjoy reading his books.
I love it. Well, buddy, you are the epitome of an owner investor, and you really have been for me for quite a long time. Like I can probably count on my hand the number of healthcare owners that I've met over the years that I admire because they understand that concept of being a good owner, good investor, and running their practice like an investment. And you are hands down one of those people that has been
I
able to
appreciate
do
that.
that. And I'm so glad you're here. I'm really glad that you're because I knew about what was happening and this. I'm glad that this whole thing actually ended up working out really, really well for you.
Right.
And
Thank
because
you.
I think you're a great owner, and for you not to own a physical therapy practice would be a detriment to the community, to patients, to everyone that was involved. So I'm glad that you're doing this right
Thank you.
now.
I appreciate that.
And I don't know if you want anyone to reach out to you, but
Yeah,
it,
they welcome too.
it,
Maybe get the contact through you. So
yeah, if you guys
if you have
wanted
any
to, if you
questions or
guys have any
if you're looking
questions.
to sell or have questions
Yeah, I was
on
gonna
either
ask you, like, if someone
absolutely,
does reach in and says, "Hey, I'd like to talk with him about that," then I can just forward them
absolutely.
your email or something like that. Because you really, guys, this is the biggest financial transaction of your life in most cases, and you don't really get a chance. I mean, you're gonna maybe get a chance to do it over again. That rarely happens.
Correct, correct.
So you really have to make sure that you do it right and it's thought
I'd say
through.
it, almost if it's an end game, I think it works. Like if you're near retirement age, I think it's a fine thing to do. Or if you have some other major interest you're trying to get into or a different business opportunity, maybe that's the route you go.
Yeah,
Um, so it's like we said, there's pros and cons. I've known people have done extremely well, and some haven't. But
yeah.
it's just case by case.
Johnny Johnson,
All right.
financial beast.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
See you guys.